52,000. That is the number of pediatric melatonin overdoses reported in the US in just a single year. Specifically, we saw this massive spike in 2021. And to put a sharper point on it, a full 15% of those kids ended up needing hospitalization. I mean, that's a shocking jump scare of a statistic right out of the gate, right? But it absolutely sets the high stakes for the explainer we're diving into today. Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking melatonin, the science, the supplements, and the unknowns. We're taking a real zoom-in, zoom-out journey here because, well, just look at the massive scale of the melatonin boom in the US right now. Over 5 million adults and 4 million children are taking the supplement regularly. We're talking at least monthly. Between 1999 and 2018, adult usage didn't just grow, it literally more than quintupled. It's kind of become this cultural nightly ritual across the country. But with numbers that massive, we really got to ask ourselves, do we actually understand what millions of us are swallowing every single night? Which brings us to Section 1, How the Hormone Works, where we'll zoom right into the brain chemistry. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to establish a stark foundational contrast. On the one hand, you have endogenous melatonin. This is the all-natural hormone your body makes, which is tightly regulated by your brain's internal clock and your pineal gland. On the other hand, you have exogenous melatonin. This is the stuff you actually swallow from a bottle. It's made synthetically in a lab, or sometimes it's even derived from animal glands. And in the United States, it's classified and sold just as a dietary supplement. So yeah, they might share the exact same name, but their origins and honestly how they enter your system couldn't be more fundamentally different. Let's move on and see how this builds naturally inside the brain. It's like a brilliant linear biochemical assembly line. It all kicks off with step 1. Tryptophan. Yep, the exact same amino acid you hear everybody blaming for their post-Thanksgiving nap. Your body takes that tryptophan and converts it into step 2, serotonin, which is a super crucial neurotransmitter. And then, in a very specific, carefully timed process, that serotonin gets converted into step 3, melatonin. It's just a beautifully structured 3-step physiological mechanism. But who's the manager of this assembly line? Well, that would be the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN for short. Think of the SCN as your brain's central circadian pacemaker. It's the boss. When the sun sets and it gets dark, your retina detects that lack of light and shoots a signal straight to the SCN. The SCN then sympathetically triggers the pineal gland, effectively flipping the switch, and boom, your brain starts pumping out natural melatonin to get your body ready for some restful sleep. Moving on to Section 2, Proven Benefits and Uses. Let's look at what the science actually supports. I want to guide you through this data because the nuance here is absolutely fascinating. Let's start with the general public taking melatonin for basic insomnia. Studies show it is effective, but the results are actually pretty modest. It reduces sleep onset latency, which is just a fancy way of saying the time it takes you to fall asleep, by about 7 to 11.7 minutes. So that's statistically significant, for sure, but it's maybe not the instant knockout pills some people are expecting. However, look at the other patient groups. For folks with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, the benefits are profound. It safely decreases the time it takes to fall asleep, increases total sleep duration, and even improves daytime behavior. Similarly, for patients with Alzheimer's disease, it improves overall sleep quality and specifically decreases what's known as sundowning behavior, that late-day confusion and agitation. For these specific clinical populations, the data is just incredibly supportive and honestly life-changing. And for the general population who are just looking for some short-term relief from jet lag or maybe a bad week of sleep, the clinical news is really reassuring. The science shows that low to moderate doses, which is generally defined as 5 milligrams or less, are safe and very well tolerated for short-term use. If you do happen to experience side effects, they're typically minor, like a mild headache or somnolence, which is just daytime fatigue. And the great thing is those side effects resolve immediately the second you stop taking it. You aren't building a physical tolerance or going through severe withdrawal. But here is where we really need to zoom back out to the systemic reality. Because while the melatonin molecule itself is relatively safe, the bottle of melatonin you actually buy at the grocery store is a completely different story. Welcome to Section 3, the Supplement Wild West. Let's talk about what's really in the bottle. Now, what's really interesting here is this massive dosage inaccuracy. Because melatonin is considered a dietary supplement in the US, it completely bypasses the strict, rigorous FDA regulations required for prescription drugs. When researchers went and tested 30 commercial melatonin supplements right off the shelf, the actual content in the pill compared to what was claimed on the label was stunning. The lowest one tested contained 83% less melatonin than advertised. The highest, a massive 478% more than the label claimed. No way around it. You literally do not know the exact dose you're putting into your body. And the inconsistencies absolutely do not stop at dosing. Because it's a Wild West market out there, consumers are facing a maze of unpredictable purities. Researchers found up to a 465% lot-to-lot variability in the exact same product from the exact same brand. Even more concerning, 26% of the tested supplements actually contained serotonin as an active contaminant. Furthermore, depending on the manufacturer, these formulations can contain unregulated porcine, meaning pig, extracts. For consumers with strict religious guidelines or dietary restrictions, this presents a massive, completely unlabeled conflict.
Let's head into Section 4, Emerging Risks and Unknowns, focusing on the nuance of long-term use.
This lack of regulation and oversight brings us to a very serious, highly nuanced conversation about long-term use. Recently, you might have seen some pretty startling headlines linking long-term melatonin use to heart failure. We really need to look at this impartially. Dr. Kanika P. Modi, an advanced heart failure cardiologist, provides some absolutely vital context here. She notes, difficulty sleeping can be a symptom of existing heart failure. The crucial takeaway from that is that the scientific link is strictly observational. There is literally zero evidence proving melatonin causes heart failure. Rather, chronic poor sleep might simply be an early warning sign of a struggling heart or blood pressure issues. So patients are reaching for melatonin to fix a symptom when the root cause actually requires a cardiologist. That being said, there are specific demographics that absolutely need to exercise caution based on the data. Take older adults, for example. Prescribed melatonin has been associated with a 44% increased risk of bone fractures. Why? Well, because even a standard 3 milligram dose can significantly impair postural control and balance the very next day. Then we have children. While it's hugely beneficial for kids with neurodevelopmental disorders, as we saw earlier, there are subjective, highly understudied concerns that artificially keeping a child's melatonin levels high for years might actually delay the onset of puberty. This is because it's the natural drop in melatonin that helps trigger sexual maturation. Finally, we got to talk about drug interactions. Melatonin is a hormone metabolized in your liver by specific enzymes. It can dangerously increase sedation if taken with sleep aids like zolpidem, and its concentration in your blood can be drastically altered if taken with medications like the antidepressant fluvoxamine. Which brings us to the ultimate question we really have to ask ourselves at the end of this explainer. Is the pursuit of a perfect night's sleep masking the warning signs of a deeper health issue? When we bypass our body's brilliant natural rhythms and reach for an unregulated bottle to force ourselves into sleep, are we silencing our body's own alarm system? I urge you to reconsider your own sleep hygiene. Check to see if your supplements have independent quality verification, and most importantly, ask your doctor what is really inside your sleep supplement.